What if every single person on Earth jumped at the exact same moment? This question comes from Yusuf, and the short answer is nothing. Well, not exactly nothing. Let's back up. First, you'd need to get 8 billion people to agree on something. Based on current evidence, this alone would take several centuries and would probably still fail. But let's assume it worked. Every human on the planet, every toddler, every night shift worker asleep in Tokyo, every person who definitely didn't read the memo, all jumping at the exact same moment. Now, what actually happens to the Earth? This is a physics question, and physics has a very clear and slightly disappointing answer. The total mass of all humans on Earth is roughly 560 million metric tons. That sounds like a lot, until you compare it to the mass of Earth, which is about 6, followed by 24 zeros, kilograms. So in comparison, humanity's share of Earth's mass is about the same as a single mosquito's share of a school bus. And the mosquito does not move the bus. When everyone jumps, they push down on the Earth. The Earth pushes back. Newton's third law, the entire planet recoils in the opposite direction by roughly 100 micrometers. That's less than the width of a human hair. For a brief moment, everyone is in the air. And then, about 600 milliseconds later, everyone lands. The Earth returns to exactly where it started. Momentum is conserved. Nothing has changed. The planet didn't even notice. But wait, what about the landing? 8 billion people hitting the ground at the same instant is not nothing. A typical person jumping about 30 centimeters releases roughly 100 joules of energy when they land. Multiply that by 8 billion, and you get about 800 billion joules. That's roughly equivalent to a magnitude 6.9 earthquake, which sounds terrifying until you remember that earthquakes like that happen naturally about 15 times every year. The difference is that this one is perfectly spread across the entire planet. No single place feels more than a very gentle rumble. Most people feel nothing at all. Seismologists, however, would have the best day of their careers. Every instrument on Earth lighting up at exactly the same moment. That has never happened before, and the paper they'd write about it would be extremely strange. But now we have another problem. How do you tell 8 billion people across every time zone, every language, every level of internet access to jump at the exact same second? You'd need a global synchronization signal. GPS satellites could theoretically do it. Every phone receives the signal, everyone jumps, except the billions of people without smartphones, and the people who are asleep, and the people who just don't feel like it. Let's be generous and say 6 billion people actually jump. Does that change anything? No. The Earth still moves by approximately nothing. Conservation of momentum does not negotiate. So to summarize, hundreds of millions of tons of humanity, a planetary movement smaller than a human hair, a global event equivalent to a moderate earthquake that nobody feels, and the most ambitious coordinated act in history, producing a result detectable only by extremely sensitive instruments. On the plus side, you are not in trouble with any international committee. On the downside, you organized 8 billion people for a mosquito to not move a school bus. So, that's what happens. 8 billion people jump, and the Earth barely notices. Not exactly the dramatic ending we were hoping for, but maybe that's the point. Sometimes the biggest questions have the smallest answers. If you've got a question like this, leave it in the comments. There's a good chance it becomes the next video. And if you enjoyed this one, consider subscribing. See you next time.